This database webinar is really intended to give you a good fundamental understanding of what you can do and how to make changes to the database, whether it's adding items, whether it's adding assemblies, whether it's changing assemblies, copying assemblies. We're going to get into all of the features and things that you can do to the database. One of the things that makes EBM, I think, unique and one of the better programs is the extent to which you can modify the database. Now, that's a two-edged sword, because if you go in there and do things and then you change your mind or you want to undo them, you can, but it's a matter of, reorganizing and rethinking your thoughts. So before you go too far with making changes to the database, it's a good idea to have this good fundamental knowledge in mind. So let's get started here. This is, of course, the screen you see when you open up EBM. I want to talk about a couple things before we get into the actual mechanics of making changes to the database. In the settings under user maintenance, each user has an option as to whether they can modify the database. If you check this box, that user cannot modify the database. They can still make changes within a job. They can add temporary items. They can change the assemblies that are in the job. They can make any change they need to, but it won't let them change the master database. So it's probably a good idea if you're on a network or you're a new user to have that box checked for their setup. That way they can't accidentally make changes to the database. For today's purposes, obviously, we're going to leave it unchecked. The other thing you might want to do, especially if you're thinking about making significant changes to your database, is to back it up. If you come down here to database at the bottom left, there's an option here to back up the database. Now, that backup is actually a complete system backup, if you will. It's not only the database, all the assemblies, all the items as they currently are in your system, but it's also the jobs. So this is something you probably should do periodically anyway. Even though it makes a backup to your hard drive, that's not going to help you if your hard drive fails. So it's probably good to do the backup to a USB drive or some other external source that you could retrieve it from if you have one of those major meltdowns. The restore button is what would restore the database. Now, you can also back up the job separately. I don't want to get off on this topic too far because it's not really related specifically to the database. But you may want to periodically do some housekeeping. You can come down here to backup, and you can back up jobs that aren't current, that you really don't need in your system. You can back them up to a folder, again, on your hard drive or a USB drive, and then delete them. That way, this list of jobs under open won't get too long. At some point, it probably even affects the operation, the efficiency, performance of the program if you have too many jobs. But a couple hundred jobs, even several hundred jobs, is probably not going to affect it. It's more a matter of just managing your jobs and making it easy to find them. If you've got hundreds and hundreds of jobs here, it's a little harder to track things down. So you may want to back up the old jobs and then delete them from here. Okay, so let's get into the actual modifications to the database. Now, one of the things that really makes EBM unique is the fact that you don't have to go out of the job to make a permanent change to the database. I believe that's a fairly unique thing. And the idea is anywhere you see an item, you can change it. So I'm going to open up a little practice job here. Here's the one from yesterday or Tuesday. So there's several places you see items, obviously, in the database. One of them is the audit trail. I can just take any item at random from the audit trail. Here's a 3/8 inch MC connector. I'm going to double click on it. And let's say I change this labor unit to 0.055. Well, let's make it 0.04. Now, at this point, if I don't do anything else, I just hit OK, that change is only made in the job. If I check this little box to say permanent, and so first of all, you have to deliberately do it. And when you hit OK, it's going to make you confirm it. So you can hit yes. Now that's a permanent change. That's global throughout the system. Anybody else uses that in a new job, it'll have the new value. Anywhere else in this job, it'll have that new labor unit. So the other place you see an item might be miscellaneous takeoff. Let's say I want to change one of the supports here. These are a little easier to find. Here's a one-hole strap. Here's a 3/8 inch one-hole strap. Now, instead of taking it off, I can right-click on it or come over here to the right side and hit Edit. and I can change the labor unit on this item. Again, if I check Save Permanent, when I hit OK, it'll make me confirm it. And when I say yes, that's a permanent change. So I can do that miscellaneous takeoff. Now, the same thing applies to assemblies. You don't have to go out of the job to make a change to an assembly. If I come here to Fixtures and Devices Takeoff, go to Device Assemblies. We're going to go to Receptacles, Flush, and Wood or Metal Stud. And we'll go to Duplex. And we're going to right-click on this 20 amp one with the stainless steel plate and hit Edit. So not only can you see what's in the assembly, you can make changes at this point. So let's say I want to change this 4-inch square, 1.5 deep box to a deeper box. You can click on it. I'm going to hit Maximize this so it fills out the screen better. Hit Delete at the bottom and say yes. So to replace that box, I come over here. Here's the entire database on the right. We go to Outlet Boxes and Hanger Bars, 4-inch square, and we'll do the fourth one down, the 4th square box with a bracket 2 1/8 inch deep. When you double click in the assembly, we'll do a lot more with assemblies as we go through this webinar, it brings it over to the left side of the screen. Now at this point, again, if I hit OK, that's only changing the job. There's another little tab up here that says Item Info when you're on the editing assembly screen. So again, if you hit Save Permanent, it'll make you confirm it when you hit OK, and you say yes. Okay? So basically the rule in making changes in the database is you have to check that box to Save Permanent, and you have to confirm it. Now, when you go out of the job, we're going now to the database down here at the bottom left, and hit View Edit. Anything you do here is permanent. So you don't have to do the Save Permanent option. It's not even going to be there, and it won't make you confirm it. It'll just do it. Now, the only exception to making changes in the master database here that isn't totally permanent is if you delete something. It'll put it down in this recycle bin, and unless you delete it from there, it's not totally gone from the system. It'll kind of save it there in that little recycle bin if you need to retrieve it. So let's talk about adding items to the database first. One of the examples I like to use is adding your own category of demolition items. If you don't have that module because you didn't purchase the Pro version or you didn't purchase the add-on, you can build your own. Now, when you add an item to the database, the first thing you have to make a decision on is where to put it. You can put it in one of these folders, or you can create a folder at any level. I'll do that in the first example. We'll hit Add. We'll hit OK to add an item. And we're going to hit, I didn't mean that, sorry. Sometimes they can do different things. I'm going to hit Add, but I want to add a category here. So the category is going to be Demo or Demolition. When you hit OK, you'll see that new folder is created down here almost at the bottom of the list. Now you can move it around later, but when you double click to open it, of course it's empty. So now when we hit Add, we're going to hit OK to add an item. And we'll just make up a new item. It's going to be called Remove Lay-In Fixture. So this new item needs to have a few things assigned or entered for it. One of them is the phase here, where it says COM for commercial phase. Unless you change it from the default of miscellaneous, we're going to go to remodel and demolition. So when you extend the job by phase, this is how it knows what group to put it in. On the price here, I'm going to uncheck the open because I don't need to have a price. It's just a labor-only item, and I don't want it asking me every time I extend the job. Now, labor column 1, I'm going to put 0.35. Column 2 is 0.4. Column 3 will go 0.7. So it's got a description, phase, price, and labor. Kind of the simplest case scenario. Now to add another item, you just hit Add at the right again. You can also right-click with your mouse to get all the same functions. We'll hit OK. This is going to be Remove Receptacle. change the phase. Uncheck the open on the price so it doesn't prompt us for price. For labor, we'll go a little bit lower. Description, phase, price, and labor, we'll hit OK. Now, anytime you're adding items, or especially if you're adding assemblies to the database, you've got some similarities between the items or the assemblies, is a copy feature that's going to save us a bunch of steps. So when I double-click on this receptacle here, I'm going to hit copy at the bottom to copy that assembly into memory. Nothing happens. It just puts it in memory, kind of like copying to the clipboard. So now when you hit add and hit OK, you can hit the recall button at the bottom to paste or to recall it into the new item. So I'm going to change the description here. Just the one word. This will be a switch. But I'm going to leave the phase the same, the price the same, and the labor units the same. Going to hit OK. Now you can save one more step here. And once you know what's in this item, instead of opening it up and copying it, you can just right-click on it and then left-click on copy, and then right-click anywhere in this window and hit paste. And then you just select or double-click on the new item. Change the word switch to dimmer and hit OK. Now, again, if I decide I don't need that new folder because I realized under the specialty databases I've already got one for demolition, I can just either delete it or that's the standard demolition database. So I'm going to right-click on it and delete it. You can see it actually just moves it to the recycle folder. Okay, so now I want to show you how to add items from Epic. So the item we're going to add is a bypass timer. Now, under wiring devices, there's already a folder for bypass timers. I'm going to add a 15-minute timer so I can probably copy some information from the 30-minute timer. We double-click on it and hit copy at the bottom. All that information is copied to memory. Now when you hit OK, again we go to add. We hit OK to add an item. And you hit recall at the bottom because we want to recall specifically the labor units and the phase from the original item. Now, when we move to import an item from Epic, Epic knows not to override the labor units from the item we just recalled or the phase. So I'm going to hit import at the bottom to go into Epic and find a timer. So the pathway lookup is sometimes a quick way to find items, but you got to be careful with it because often too many words is not the best way to go. If I type in bypass timer here, it says no hits. Now, a lot of the times it's better just to search on less words, not more. So if I just search on the word timer, I'm going to get a little better results. So I'm going to double click on the spring wound timers. So here, the second item is a 15-minute timer. Now, if I want to take a quick look at the catalog sheet for that item, this little red Y here will bring me to that catalog sheet in our feature called Cat Links. So if you need a cut sheet for a submittal, or you just need to verify that you've got the right item, or that you need to see some specifications on it, it's right there at your fingertips. These are PDF images. You can print them. You can save them as a PDF if you're doing some submittals. For now, I'm just going to minimize that window. Now, to export this item back into the job, it's the third button from the top right. That'll export whichever item you've got highlighted. Put them back in the job. Now, the descriptions that come out of Epic, if you want to edit them, that's fine. A lot of the time they've got more information than you really need. We don't really care that it's 6 per carton. But you'll notice it left the phase and it left the labor units. So we're done with this item. when you hit OK, now since it did put it at the bottom of the list, if I want to drag and drop it to the top, that's fine. You can move things at any level in the database. You can drag and drop, you can cut and paste, you can reorganize things to your own preferences and ways you'd like to see things. All right. So there's some examples of adding items to the database. Either you make them up with your own prices and labor units, or you pull them out of Epic. But again, if you're going to pull it out of Epic, find something that you can copy. I think 90% of the time that's not too hard to do. Okay, so now let's talk about assemblies. So I want to add a hospital grade receptacle to the database. So we're going to put it under assemblies. We're going to go down to receptacles, flush, and wood or metal stud. And I'm going to add a new folder here. So when I hit add, I'm going to hit category. And it's going to be hospital. I'm going to open up that new folder. Now I could start right here and build an assembly from scratch. If you hit add and you hit OK, instead of adding an item here, I can tell it at the bottom left that I want to create an assembly, and I can start building it. I can give the assembly a name. And I can come over here and start finding the parts one by one. So hopefully you're half a step ahead of me and thinking that why would I do that from scratch if I've already got assemblies that have most of the right parts? Because I've only got one part into the assembly now. I would still need to go find a plaster ring, a plate, a receptacle, a grounding pigtail, some wire nuts. It's a pretty long process to build it from scratch. So what I'm going to do first is cancel out of here and go find one to copy. So we're just going to go back one level, and I'm going to go to the duplex folder, and I'm going to go to that 20 amp of the stainless steel plate that we modified in the earlier part of the webinar. So we should double click on it. Excuse me. You can verify that you've got the right parts and hit copy at the bottom, and then hit OK. Go back a level here to the new folder for hospital. Now I spelled that wrong. No, that's right. That's H-O-S-P-I-T-A-L. I'll open it up. And now, after you hit add and hit OK, you hit recall. This time it's going to recall the entire assembly that I just copied. We're just going to do a couple of things here where it says spec grade. We're going to make that hospital. And we're going to delete the receptacle. Going to come over here to wiring devices. And then duplex. Oops. A minute. Here's a 20 amp duplex, hospital grade, and we're done. We've got a brand new assembly. Let's say now I want to create a GFI hospital grade. So now, just like with items, if I know what's in the assembly, I don't have to open it up. I can just right-click and copy. Right-click anywhere in this window and hit paste. Open it up. So this, instead of a standard duplex, this is going to be a GFI. So we're going to delete the receptacle again. Come over here to wiring devices. Duplex. 20 amp GFI. Hospital grade GFI. Boom. Now we're not totally done. If I want to change the plate, instead of a duplex plate, I'm going to change it to the GFI Decora style. Back one more. The back button's down here. Going to go to device plates and covers. Stainless steel. One gang. Decora GFI. All right, so let's say I want to build a receptacle assembly with a USB receptacle. Now, if you've been keeping up on your updates, the USB receptacle should be in your database. I don't think the assembly is there, but if you come down to wiring devices, duplex and single receptacles, under 20 amp, there's a tamper-resistant USB duplex receptacle. If it wasn't there, you could add it from Epic. But now we're going to go back to all items, and we're going to copy an assembly again. Under receptacles, duplex. This time I'm going to copy the 20 amp for the plastic plate. So I'm going to double click on it and hit copy at the bottom. And after you hit OK, I'm going to put it in the same category. So I'm going to hit add. I'm going to hit OK, and I'm going to hit recall. And then up in the description, I want to put in, just put it right before the word duplex. USB, duplex spec grade plastic plate. So we're going to delete the receptacle again. Back over to wiring devices, duplex, 20 amp, tamper-resistant USB. So there we go. I've got one more little thing I want to show you with assemblies before we go to the last topic today. There are some telephone data outlets with 3/4 inch conduit under telephone and data. Flush outlet box of the conduit stub. So I'm going to double click on the first one. And I'm going to make a copy of this to build one with 1 inch conduit. You can do it with 1 1/4, any sizes you want. So after we hit copy and hit OK, again, you hit add on the right, hit OK to add an item, and hit recall at the bottom. Now this time, instead of deleting and adding and deleting and adding, if we know the item number for the next item and know that they're sequential, we don't have to even add and delete. We can just change the number. So the number for 3/4 or for 1 inch EMT is going to be one higher. It's going to be 1002. And when you click down the next line, bump it up by 1. And there you go. You can change out the box. Now what did I do? So I messed up. I'm going to start over. I'm going to cancel. I'm going to hit recall again. I'm going to add again. And I'm going to hit recall. I think I forgot to do this. I'm going to change the description first. So I'm going to change the item number here to 1002, 1446, 1608, and 2340. And again, you could change it to a 411/16 box or something that might be a little more appropriate for 1 inch conduit, but that's all there is to it. You can hit OK here. Those little examples should give you the fundamentals of what you need to either add or change and copy assemblies in the database. The last topic here is the one that's probably the most challenging if you want to get into the database, what we call attributes. One of the things that makes this program powerful and flexible is the ability to add not only items to the database and assemblies like you just saw, but we can add them to the drop-down menus in the program. So anytime you see a drop-down arrow here, you can change, add, or delete to that list. Now, it's a little more complicated than just hitting some magic button. You have to do what we call assign attributes. Now, first of all, you need to know what the attribute is for this field. The way you find out what the attribute is to come up to Settings and Program Settings, and to go over to the right here where it says Takeoff, and you check this little box to show the takeoff tooltips. So now when I go back to that same part of the program, if I want to know what the attributes are for the cable supports, I just let my mouse hover over that field, and it tells me the attribute. Now this is a simple one that we're going to start with once you see how to do it here. Now the more complicated ones, like the top one, needs 3 attributes assigned. So we're just going to start with a basic one where it only needs 1 attribute called the cable support sort. Not even important, the name is just the fact that it has to be assigned. Now, when you go to the database for these items, just take that one whole strap as an example. You won't see the attributes unless you turn that feature on. There's only 2 tabs here. If we go back up to settings and program settings, there's a window hidden behind here. When you hold Control-Shift down and click, you can check these 3 boxes here so that we can work with the attributes. So now when I go back to anywhere in the database, like the cable takeoff, and if I go and look up that item, supports and hangers, one-hole straps. Now this one's going to have more than one attribute assigned, but the only one that needs to appear in that window is the cable support sort right here. The other ones don't affect specifically what we're doing here. Okay, so if I want to add a category to that drop-down list that doesn't even exist in the database, I've got to put it in the database before I can assign the attributes. So I want to add a category for JHooks. So we're going to hit Add. We're going to hit OK, we're going to add a category called JHooks. And then we're going to move it up because I don't want it to be at the bottom. Again, doesn't really matter, but we're going to open it up. Now, I could go and add and import like we did earlier with the bypass timer, or there's also the ability to import multiple items from Epic. Now, we do this kind of backwards from the way you do a single item. Epic's already running down here. So I'm going to go to the description lookup and type JHooks. So here's again something that doesn't work like you might expect it to with Epic. It doesn't like plurals. If I change this just to JHook, get rid of the S, make it singular, now it finds a lot more items. So I'm going to scroll down here. I want to use the Erico Caddy ones. So here's a 3/4 inch galvanized JHook. You just double click on the left here. Keep scrolling down. There's 1 5/16. Oops. And I think we're going to find a 2-inch galvanized one down here. And then we'll do one more. Oh, shoot, sorry about that. And there we go, 4-inch galvanized. Okay, so I've selected 4 items by checking the little box to the left here. So now you go up to the Edit option in Epic, and you hit Copy Marked Items to the Clipboard. So those 4 items are actually sent to the Windows clipboard. When we toggle back into EBM, you just right-click anywhere in this window, this new folder, and you hit Import Multiple Items. So now we just need to assign the attributes. Remember, the attribute is the cable support sort. So when you double-click on the item, we have a new tab here for attributes. You come here to cable support sort. Now, the lower the number in this particular type of item, the higher it is in the list, the higher the priority. So I'm going to give it a 3. Now, you could actually do this in a batch mode if you want to do all 4 at the same time. With that category highlighted, you hit Batch Modify. And you hit Category. And you do Attributes. And we select the attribute called the cable support sort. And we'll set them all to 3. It's going to tell me I've changed the attribute of 4 items. Now to test it, you actually need to close the program. It doesn't actually implement the attributes until you close the program and reopen it. I've got it pinned to my taskbar down here. So now when I go to the cable takeoff module, wire conduit, cable, and go to that list, and there they are. So again, that's one of the more challenging things about customizing the database is utilizing the attributes, but it's really powerful. It really allows you to customize what you see in those drop-down menus, whether it's items that are already in your database or even new items that you've added. You can put them in the drop-down menus and they'll stay there. Okay, I think that's going to about wrap it up here. Just one more quick note, maybe it wasn't obvious here. When I imported those items from Epic, those JHooks, this applies to anything that you import from Epic. It pulls in the UPC number. So even if I change the description and labor units and all that, as long as this UPC number is here on the third line, Epic will update it. Everything is keyed to those UPC numbers you see there that are in Epic and in items that you pulled from Epic into your program. Okay, I think that's going to about wrap it up here. So I want to thank everyone for attending our webinar here today.